What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Mikey McNuggets here. Jason Lloyd has the night off, which means I'm bringing in the big dogs for reinforcements. It's been a long time coming. It's my guy, Mac Perry. He goes by Devarian Perry on Twitter, but I know him as Mac, and you probably know him as the most optimistic Cavs fan on the platform. Mac, how you doing, my friend? And I know it has to be sweet on the optimistic side of Cavs Island.
I feel like everything I've been preaching for the last couple of seasons has, vindicated me, right? The Cavs start to the season has been nothing short of phenomenal, and hopefully people start to jump on the bandwagon now. We all joke about, staying on that side and stuff in regards to specific players, but man, we're all happy. It's 9-0, only team in the league to stay undefeated.
So I want to start with this question, and you consume not just Cavs information and reports and et cetera. You follow the league as a whole. Do you feel like the Cavs are still the NBA's best kept secret? And if the answer is yes, will they still be a secret if they beat Golden State tomorrow night?
Honestly, I do not feel like we are the best kept secret anymore. I feel like last season was kind of our coming out party, and I don't think you would have seen some of the excruciating opinions in regards to this team be what they were after the the playoff series against Boston. People talking about how the Cavaliers, they were overmatched and things of that nature. But winning that Orlando series did a lot of things for this team. And I think that when the national media's biggest concern with your team is, well, can Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland fit? Can Jared Allen and Evan Mobley fit? Is Donovan Mitchell actually going to re-sign with your franchise? I think people are aware of you. And the start to the season, it's only really made a lot of people look silly. That's what it's done, man.
I think to an extent, the Cavs are still a little bit of a secret on the national stage. Not, is this team good? Who are the players? But just how good they've been playing so far. And I think against Golden State on Friday night, it's an opportunity to put those final doubters to rest. It's 9 games into the season. There's still a lot of basketball to be played, Mac. But when you start a year 10-0, like 10-0, it's hard to really diminish the accomplishment and just say, well, it's early. That's an eighth of the season. That's a legitimate fraction of the season. And it's hard to ignore a 10-0 start regardless.
It's a good sample size for sure. Yeah.
And with the Warriors coming to town, this is a marquee matchup, obviously. They're 7-1, just beat the Celtics. They're riding high. It's the 2 best benches in basketball, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But I do think how well the Cavs are playing. They're top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency, offensive rating, defensive rating. They're top 5 in net rating. You see the names, but with Kenny Atkinson at the helm, they're all coming together in ways we hadn't seen in previous regimes. And I think tomorrow night, even though it's not a nationally televised game, and as someone who's going to be there and has to cover and do stuff on deadline, thank goodness, those ESPN timeouts add an extra 30 seconds, and that adds up. Trust me, I understand it would be better on ESPN, but for my own personal gain, I appreciate it not being. I think it is a chance to get some national guys to not just acknowledge the hot start, but kind of dive into and dig into what's made them so successful. And it's going to open a lot of people's eyes to the actual potential and ceiling of this Cavs team.
Yeah, as I watch this team night in and night out, I cannot help but wonder to myself, where was this the last couple of seasons? Because the pieces have clearly been here, and sometimes it just takes the right voice to lead your guys in the correct manner to get the most out of them. And so far, so good with Kenny Atkinson.
Do you think we're going to do this on UCSS tomorrow? And it's not fair. I'm going to ask a question that's not fair. Okay, let me preface this. I know it's not fair. Is the 9-0 start? Is it an indictment on JB? Like, is it fair to look back and say, yeah, we knew he had his shortcomings, but maybe was he even worse than some people may have thought?
Anybody who's ever listened to me talk basketball about the Cavaliers knows that I remain a JB Bickerstaff fan, right? I tried to do my best to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I think it is somewhat of an indictment of JB, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Now, one of the things that sticks out to me from this early start is the 3-point attempts, right? Somebody, a lot of people this offseason were saying that Kenny Atkinson was going to have this team lighten it up from 3-point distance. And Yeah, Mikey, the thing that shocks me is that we're only taking zero point 0.4 more triples than we were last season. But
It
the difference,
feels like a lot more, but it's not.
exactly. The pace, we're 12th in pace
Yeah.
right now. We finished 24th last season, but the difference is the types of looks that we are generating, right? Kenny Atkinson has schemed up ways to get guys open looks. And one of the things that's really stuck out to me is that, we heard all offseason long that they wanted to get the backcourt pairing of Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland more off-ball opportunities. It hasn't so much been the case for Donovan, but it has definitely been the case for Darius so far.
Yep.
Darius has been money off ball to start this season, and I love it. And they're not even, and it's not even like all the offseason talk we heard about Evan Mobley making plays for these 2 out in transition. It's not even just that. They're really just moving the ball around in a crazy type of way. It's moving left to right. It doesn't feel like it's forced either. It feels natural.
Yeah. It's been impressive. On the one hand, it definitely is an indictment on JB to some extent. The utilization of Evan Mobley, the different ways Kenny Atkinson is getting him the ball and putting him in positions to attack is something we didn't see. Now, on the other hand, Darius Garland couldn't make a shot last year.
That's
he
fair.
Can't miss a shot this year. That's not JB. That's a lot of it's on the players too. But I do think it's impossible to look at this start and not wonder, was some of this potential in there previously? And when you go from being competitive and winning 50 games and certainly having success to now being arguably the best team in basketball when the only real change is the head coach and his staff, it's impossible not to have the question, or at least ask it, of whether or not he was maximizing the talent on the roster. And I said this on Tuesday, Mac, and I'm curious what you think. A lot of people wanted to blow up the core 4. And we don't have the definitive answer. Can this work in the playoffs? It has certainly worked to the highest of high levels through 9 regular season games. We won't get that playoff question answered until April and May. So there's no point in having that discussion. But Kobe Altman put his nuts on the table and said, this roster works. It's the coach that's not getting the most out of it. And you know what? People are going to be mad at me because they don't think it works. I think it does. And I have to give him a round of applause and tip my cap to having the conviction to not cave into the outside pressure, not conform to the rest of the NBA's normalities and quote unquote parameters of what a championship team could be and should be, and saying, no, I think I assembled a damn good roster and I'm going to find the right coach to get the most out of it. So I just want to give him his due diligence and his credit because we certainly took our fair amount of shots at him throughout the offseason.
I think that it's important to understand that these guys, they're human, right? Not just the players, but the front office, these guys heading up the organization, they hear all this shit. I mean, they hear everything that goes on. But like you said, to not cave to the pressure from fans, from NBA media pundits, from analysts, everybody out there that's critiquing you and the decisions that you are making. And I applaud Kobe Altman for standing his ground and clearly believing in the core and roster, honestly, that he assembled, because we didn't see major changes, really. We had maybe 1 to 2 real additions this offseason, and they're not even really playing. I mean, the addition of Jalen Tyson, everybody was hype about that. I know I certainly was. Jalen's
he's going to get his time. I'm still confident Jalen's going to get his minutes here.
I think it's certainly possible, especially, I see the comments down here about Kenny limiting the minutes, which is great to keep guys fresh down the stretch. And by virtue of that, you will see players that you wouldn't normally have seen in the JB Bickerstaff era, right? Yeah. Some of the younger guys. So, yeah, I think Kobe Altman deserves a ton of praise to this point. He's only 9 games in, but I'm hoping that the gravy train keeps on rolling.
Absolutely. Let's you mentioned an addition. Ty Jerome was not an addition by nature of the signing. He just is an addition by being physically healthy enough to play after the world's longest sprained ankle injury in the history of humanity.
Oh,
and listen,
God.
I think you tweeted this, and I was thinking the same thing. Actually, I'm pretty sure you did tweet it. Like, what if Ty Jerome was on this team last year? Like, how much does that change? And obviously, we'll never know. But this dude's balling, like legitimately balling on both ends of the court. Kenny Atkinson, I forget who asked the question, but someone asked Kenny about Jerome's defense, and he goes, hey, he's not the greatest defender before the game. And then he ends up with 2 pickpockets against Milwaukee and the Lakers in back-to-back games. And someone asked him, Kenny, after, and he's like, well, Ty listens. And to your point, they all listen. They all hear everything. If you don't think the first thing they're doing when they get out the court and get to the locker room is check their phones, then you are wrong, because I can tell you with my own eyes that is the first thing that's happening. We saw it happen in Philadelphia with Joel Embiid. Like, they trust me, they're reading and seeing everything, whether they admit it or not. But this bench is playing awesome, Mac. Jerome, maybe Atkinson's most impressive coaching feat so far is turning Karis LeVert from the world's craziest roller coaster into a nice, calm, lazy river of efficient basketball. Sam Merrill's playing awesome. We've seen contributions from George Niang. Dean Wade, when he was in the starting lineup before he got sick, have been playing well. Top to bottom, it's not just the core four. Everyone who's playing minutes right now is contributing in a positive way. And they're probably one of 2 or 3 teams in basketball that you can say that about.
I mean, we are in a point right now where it is fair to continue to look back at JB and say, hey, man, you had these very same pieces last season. Why weren't we seeing this type of production? Why weren't we seeing some of the consistency that we have seen from a player like LeVert, who has consistently struggled with consistency? It's something that I have marveled at, especially him in general. Ty Jerome, you hit on. It's just the man has 13 steals.
He's awesome.
He has 13 steals in 9 games. He's averaging the 3rd most steals off the bench, I believe, for reserves right now, or at least he has the 3rd highest amount of steals for any reserve. He's not a defender that I would have thought would have been able to rack up numbers like that. And for Jerome, I think I tweeted it out earlier. He's in the 97th percentile in terms of assist percentage. He's moving the ball out there well. And I'll be honest with you, Mikey, when he was first acquired last offseason, I was really, really high on the idea of him running the second unit. And we only got 2 games of him, and I was depressed and bummed out about that. And then Craig Porter Jr., did what he did, and I felt much better about that. But people just forgot about Ty after that happened. And lo and behold, this offseason, we hear all the praise that he was getting. He was what did Kenny call him? The MVP of September.
Yeah.
He's shown just how valuable he can be to this Cavaliers team, and he's on a cheap deal. I'm not even going to try and look at the future right now, but he certainly has yielded some fantastic results for this second unit.
No, I do want to look at the future real quick because you brought it up.
Sure.
We mentioned this on today's show. So the Cavs have said, and Jason Lloyd in particular has reported this, they don't want to enter or start the luxury tax clock until next season because that's when the extensions kick in. And it's not that Dan doesn't want to pay the money. It's not that they can't afford it. It's that every year you're on the clock, the penalties get more and more and more. So if you're going to go into the tax, you better go into the tax. And right now the Cavs are just over the threshold, like $2.5 million over the threshold. If you're going to go into the tax, you go into it. You don't go over by 2.5 to start the tax. But Mac, if they keep playing this level of basketball, I don't know how you consider, if you're the Cavs front office, shedding off $2.5 million or whatever the number is to get under the tax. You got to become a buyer. And if you're going to be a tax team, be a tax team. Go get somebody to enhance this roster and give yourself a better chance to compete, because we've seen it. And we'll use the Browns for an example. They thought they had a championship window of 4 or 5 years. They had a championship window of 1 season, and it was with Joe Flacco at quarterback. You never know when these opportunities and the health and everything's going to align. The Eastern Conference is a jambalaya of meh right now.
Yeah.
It's Boston, it's Cleveland, and it's nobody. And some teams will get better. It's obviously super early. But I am 2 or 3 games away from changing my complete opinion of the true ceiling of this team, Mac. And if it is what I think it could be, which is this team's good enough to win an NBA championship, you have to get aggressive. And you have to do what you can to maximize this window, which is right now. You can deal with 5 years down the road. Deal with that then. But don't wait because we don't want to start the clock now. You can't guarantee that clock will still be the window will still be open when the clock is ticking in 5 years. But if it's open now, go be aggressive. I don't know what the move is. I don't even want to speculate it, but I do not want to hear or entertain any thoughts of let's just shed a little salary so don't start the clock. If this team's as competitive as I think it can be.
It's funny how these mentalities can shift, this early into the season, and nothing against anybody that thought that, because, Lord knows coming into this year, I'll be honest with you guys, I thought Karis LeVert was a done deal in Cleveland past this season. I thought, we're going to ship him out at the trade deadline to, consolidate and address a positional need where we actually have, few players that fit the mold of what we actually need there, like backup big, right? Backup 4 or 5. Can't necessarily rely upon a Tristan Thompson to give you quality playoff minutes if he's ever called upon at this point in his career. With all due respect,
again, which I'm all for. I mean, listen,
as long as you don't get caught.
I don't. If he gets caught, he gets caught. If he gets and he can't play, he's playing like 3 minutes a game. Like you might as well
Yeah.
try and maximize it. I would juice again, Tristan.
But moreover, yeah, I entered the season feeling that this would likely be his final season in Cleveland. But based upon the start that he has had, based upon the start that Ty Jerome has had, based upon the start that George Niang,
He's balling.
who has had a fantastic start to the year off the bench in the limited time that he's getting, it's making me change my mindset on, hey, well, should we even consider moving a number of these players? Should we just try and wait it out and see if maybe we can sell these guys on re-signing on, cheaper deals? But there at the deadline, there will be a lot of conversations had if the Cavaliers continue to play the way that they have to open the season about, hey, what do we need most right now? What can take us from second round exit to potential championship contending team? Because I honestly, like you said, it's Boston, it's Cleveland, and then there's a considerable drop off right now. At least teams will level out. They will start to catch up a little bit after they get their footing and guys come back from injury and whatnot. But for what this team has right now, I don't think we are really that far away from declaring them a full-blown title contender, because we have all seen how quickly a championship window can open and close, and you don't want to miss it.
No, big facts. I couldn't agree more. I'm already putting them in that conversation. I have seen enough. They have at all times, Mac. I'm going to ask you a series of yes or no questions, okay?
Sure.
Do the Cavs have, at minimum, 4 potential All-Stars?
Yes.
Are there fewer than maybe 5 teams in the league that can say that?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fewer than 3 teams in the league that maybe can say that?
Oh, that's a.
I think it's 3.
I would go 3.
Cleveland.
Yes.
Okay, so we're on the same page.
Yep.
At any given point in the game, can the Cavs have an all-star guard and a legitimate lob threat in the game to put defenses in a complete, chaotic, what the hell do we do situation?
Absolutely, yes.
Are they one of 3 teams in the league that can probably do that?
Yes.
Do they have a coach that you think can win at a high level?
I'm already sold. 9 games in. Give him the coach of the year.
They have a general manager who's proven in the past that he's aggressive enough to make moves when needed.
We have Donovan Mitchell. Yes.
To me, that screams championship contender, Mac. This is it's the number 1 most efficient offense in basketball right now. It's a top 10 defensive efficiency team. They're number 3 in net. They're beating teams by double digits more often than not. I understand it's 9 games. And like we said, so much can change in the next 73 games. No.
Math is hard. 73, yeah.
No, yeah. Like a lot can change, but the way this team is playing, it's playing at a championship level. And I entered the season and I was pretty adamant. I thought they were the 4th or 5th best team in the Eastern Conference.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the Knicks would be better. I thought the 76ers, the regular season didn't matter to them, but I thought come playoff time, they'd be better. Mac, I've completely flipped in 10 games, and I'm usually not an early adapter, but this is one of the times where I've forced myself to believe what my eyes are seeing and not just say it's a mirage, because the intangibles of what I think you need to win at the highest levels are there. And the continuity they have from playing with each other for 2, 3, in some cases 4 years, with the addition of a coach who seems to have brought the best parts of his entire coaching ecosystem with him. Offense from D'Antoni, offense from Kerr, defense from Ty Lue, the camaraderie and the community building that he had in Brooklyn. It's all coming together in a symbiotic fashion that has produced elite level basketball. And frankly, they're going to lose games. They're not going to go 82-0. But that is the team that could win 55 to 60 games in the regular season without exerting an all-out effort to diminish their playoff chances. I think they're that good, and I'm usually not that quick to jump on the bandwagon.
Welcome to my side of the street, man. Let me tell you, you cannot tell Cleveland fans that this team does not have the possibility of besting the 2015-2016 Warriors regular season record. I think that sometimes you can just tell when something special is happening before your very eyes. There have been multiple teams, 10 total teams to start a season 9-0 now. 4 of those 10 teams have won an NBA championship. The Cavaliers, I think, have an opportunity to do that if they play their cards right. Now, obviously, a championship run consists of multiple factors. You need a little bit of luck to get there.
A lot of luck.
Yes, your guys have to step up. Everybody has to buy in, and you have to have the right kind of leadership at the top and at the coaching level. And I think the Cavaliers have all of those things. I'm at a point right now where I don't see many teams, if any, maybe 1 to 2 teams that could compete with this team in the Eastern Conference to get to the finals in the first place. Boston is obviously right there, and we'll have to see what some of these other teams end up doing down the stretch. I still think that Milwaukee will manage to level itself out. I still think that New York will eventually figure it out. There'll be a tough out, but
I like the Magic too.
Yeah.
When Padlo comes back, I think that's
Oh,
a good team.
that was a big time loss for them. 4 to 6 weeks in the NBA is an eternity, though, and we don't even know what the actual timetable will be once that clears. Like, he could miss additional games after that, so we'll have to see for seeding purposes where they end up falling.
All right, Matt, let's talk about the marquee matchup tomorrow night. They're playing the Warriors. It's obviously not LeBron versus Steph anymore. It's Donovan versus Steph. These are two of the best teams in basketball so far. It's the two best benches plus Oklahoma City. You can rank them 1, 2, 3 in any order you want. It's the two highest scoring benches at a minimum. And the Cavs have the most efficient three-point shooting bench in the league. Shout out to my guy, Sam Merrill and George Niang for leading that. It's going to be an absolute madhouse at Rocket Mortgage tomorrow night. I cannot wait. I will be there early. I'll be there late. But when you look at this matchup on paper, Mac, does Golden State have the size to contend with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley? Or is that the Cavs' one definitive advantage that you think could end up playing a pivotal point in how the game plays out?
I think that is the single biggest point that the Cavaliers, their single biggest advantage right now, because both of these teams are obviously great shooters. You see what Buddy Hield is doing over there right now. That dude is shooting with insane efficiency on a high volume over there. And this is a dude who we all wanted to be in Cleveland at certain points throughout his NBA tenure. But I'm glad that he landed on a team that is utilizing his strengths very, very well. But yes, the bigs, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, few front court pairings can do, if any, right now in the NBA in the Eastern Conference, have the ability to do what they do both on the offensive and defensive end in terms of having a sheer impact out there without having to have the ball in their hands. So I'm really hoping that Kenny Atkinson finds a way to exploit that for them. And that is no disrespect to the Draymond Greens and the, Trace Jackson Davises and Kevon Looney's of the world, because those are fine role players. I'll say that, role players in their own right. And they've had a phenomenal start to the season in their own right, but I just don't think they can compete with what we have in our front court.
I hope that the rebounding advantage those two give the Cavs can lead to some open's not the right word, some easy transition opportunities, because I think it's going to be a high scoring game. And the Cavs defense has been good this season. I think they're allowing about 110 points per game, which sounds crazy, but that's top 10 in the NBA. Which goes to show how much has changed in the last decade. 110 a decade ago, Mac was like 27th in the league. And now I think it's literally 8th or 9th. But the Cavs are going to have to outscore the Warriors tomorrow. As good as their defense has been, Golden State's going to get theirs. They have too many shooters. They can throw too many guys who can create onto the court at once to just completely negate what they want to do offensively. I think it's imperative for the Cavs to rebound well, get out and run, and look for that early offense. And one thing I want to point out, maybe my favorite part of this Atkinson experiment so far is the early offense he's running for guys who are mostly bench players, but guys you don't really think about running early offense for. These early DHOs for Sam Merrill.
Yes.
And
Evan Mobley is connected to a lot of those, by the way.
Yeah, and he really is kind of the catalyst. Kenny said after was it the Bucks game? He had the block and then the dunk. And that was the Bucks. Yeah. He said after that game, I forget who asked the question, but he's like, we want Evan to get a rebound, get a block, and take it himself and go. Like, don't pass it. Go. Good things happen when you do that. And he's not 100% comfortable doing it that often right now, but we're trying to get him more comfortable in that sense. They run some stuff for Niang, whether it be a little ghost screen or a pick-to-picker to get Niang a three. Yeah. Dean Wade, when he was with more of the second unit stagger, he was getting some early offense run for him. They have some ghost fake screens that Okoro's kind of setting that they think DG is going to pop off for a ball screen. Then Okoro goes sets the actual screen. They're doing a lot of early offense, and I think if they can control the glass and get out in transition, it's going to open up a lot of good looks against a Warriors defense that's been really good this season. Just like the Cavs, they've also excelled on both ends of the court, and that's kind of what I'm going to keep my eye on as the game unfolds. Obviously, you'll be watching for Steph and Donovan and the shooting theatrics that we'll see. But the rebounding, and can the Cavs turn rebounds into easy opportunities on offense? It's kind of the game inside the game I'll be keeping an eye on tomorrow night.
I mean, they're literally averaging nearly a full 6 rebounds more than Cleveland is right now. That's something to keep eye on. That's despite their top rebounder being Kevon Looney at 8.4 per game. Jared Allen, Evan Mobley, they can certainly clean the glass on both the offensive and defensive boards, but we have to team rebound, especially with the way that they shoot the ball. You know, they're putting up 40 plus attempts per game. Everybody, including the guards, who I feel like have done a pretty decent job so far of attacking the glass out there. And we certainly have seen the impact that a Dean Wade can have out there. The counting stats will not show it for Dean Wade. Hopefully he's back, but he gets a lot of tip. You know, he tips the ball out to guys.
He's a really good rebounder. The Cavs rebounding numbers when Wade's on the court are significantly better than they are when he's not on the court. And it doesn't matter who the other 4 players are. Dean Wade plus any 4. Hell, Mac, you put me and you out there with Dean Wade, and our rebounding numbers would probably look pretty good. And even though he's not the one grabbing the boards, does a good job blocking out and making sure his guy isn't there to kind of jumble it up in the paint to allow Jarrett and
it's
Evan
good
and
positioning. Yeah, he has some really solid positioning out there. He has a good feel for where the ball is going to careen off the rim.
2 more things, and real quick, I see a comment from Sports Dog I want to mention real quick. Is Atkinson forming Mobley into a better Draymond? We got a long way to go. I understand Draymond's not popular in Cleveland. We got a long way to go before Mobley reaches the Draymond level, but he certainly has the potential to be an all-NBA caliber player, which Draymond was. I don't know if I'm going to put him in a better than Draymond category yet, though.
I think there are aspects of like Draymond during the start of the Warriors run that, you know, because there were times in which Draymond orchestrated the offense. He would bring the ball up. We were seeing Kenny Atkinson trying to get Evan Mobley to tap into that more, especially with pace out there. But I don't think I'm ready to go that far yet. And Draymond, for like you said, as much as we dislike some of the antics on the court, he was a generational type of defender for what they asked him to do during the early stretches of that run. And Evan Mobley is off to a great start, but we got to put some respect on Green's name in that area.
I feel like he's somehow incredibly underrated for a guy who gets talked about more than almost anyone for a million off the court reasons. And court. But his career, I mean, he was pretty incredible.
He is an 8-time all-defensive guy. He's one of the defensive player of the year. He is multiple-time all-star, an NBA champion, and obviously Steph and Clay and, you know, KD in this short period there. They got all the acclaim, but Draymond was an essential piece of what made them function the way that they did for so long.
All right, 2 more things, Mac. What's been your favorite part of this 9-0 start for the Cavs? Individual player, a certain aspect of the game. From just your perspective, what's been your favorite or most fun part to watch evolve over the first 2.5 weeks of the season?
Personally, it has been the return to all-star level play for Darius Garland. You know, Isaac Okoro being impactful out there, George Niang having to turn around after so many fans are ready to ship his ass off to Siberia after last season. But it's definitely Darius Garland, because I think people talk about his all-star season in 2021-22. They completely forget about his 2022-23, in which he played at an all-star caliber level despite not being voted in. And they used 2023-24 as evidence that this man was what he was. And I am so happy for Darius Garland that he has been able to kind of shift the mindset here and just get back to playing confident basketball. And while we're not seeing, I think we even talked about this a month or two ago, while we are not seeing the 3-point attempts be up around 8, 9, 10 per game for him, he is averaging a career best right now at 7.1, which is, you know, almost half a full number more than he has during his previous career high back during his all-star season. And so what they've been able to do with him and, you know, him just flipping the switch at any point in the game and impacting it, whether it be do it via his facilitation or pure scoring, it's been awesome to watch. And I just hope that he continues that trend, because when Darius Garland is playing good basketball, the Cavaliers tend to play well as a result.
Yeah, I want to give a boring answer, but one that I can talk on that maybe gives a little perspective elsewhere.
Sure.
Because the Darius answer is great. Evan's obviously a big one. I've been to 4 home games now. 4 home games. I'll be there tomorrow night for the 5th. The vibes in the locker room, Mac, could not be more different. And sometimes it's cool to pull back the curtain. Like, I'm lucky. I get access to the locker room. Like, it's a blessing, and I know it's part of the job. But last year, you don't like to talk about when things just don't feel right because you're not in there enough to really get a good vibe. We're in there for 10 minutes after the game. The dudes just showered. They want to get out of here. They don't want to talk to us 95% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But you can just tell, like, at the end of last year, something wasn't right. And you're not in there long enough to kind of pinpoint what's not right. But you can just kind of sense something's off. Mac, it could not be the more opposite this year. Not only do you walk in and you feel like you're, walking into a family environment, which is crazy because we're visitors in their home. We're not supposed to be there. Well, we're allowed to be there. You know what I'm saying? But like, that's their sacred place. We're allowed in. They're busting each other's balls during interviews.
Yeah, I've heard it.
Every time we do an interview, behind the media is a 7-foot giant or, Dean Wade or whoever asking questions. Donovan, when they bring out players to the podium, Donovan likes to sit back on the camera row, cross his legs and raise his hand like he's one of us. It's a tangible difference and just a vibe check. They've used the word immaculate 2 or 3 times now, so I'm going to just steal their word.
Yeah.
It's immaculate vibes in the locker room. And as someone who played basketball at a Division III level and was in really good locker rooms and really bad locker rooms, that makes a huge difference. And I genuinely get the sense these guys not only like each other, but are willing to go to war for each other. And I'm not quite sure when or how that's going to pay off dividends in the long run. But you could just tell it wasn't right last year. And right now, it couldn't be more right. And I'm not saying that's the reason they're 9-0. I'm not saying that's the reason they didn't win the playoffs last year. And that's the reason that I'm just pointing out a stark difference in something that I've been able to witness inside that I do think has some sort of translatable effect on the court, even if you can't put your finger on exactly what it is.
Well, as somebody who plays rec basketball, I have no idea what vibes feel like in a locker room. But what I can tell you is that from the outside looking in, I mean, it seems a lot closer to the 2021-22 vibes when there was just no pressure, right? It felt like there's no pressure, but obviously there is this time around. And I think the guys, they're sold on the vision that Kenny Atkinson has placed upon them. And I could not be more excited about where that could eventually take us. And, obviously through some of the interviews that we saw leading up to the off season, you could tell that there may have been some, hankerings of negative energy surrounding the team, but it seems all but gone. All tension has been resolved, or at least that's how it appears from the outside looking in. And obviously winning can help that, and especially going 9-0 to start a season. Yeah. But I really do believe that the vibes that we're seeing on the court, and as you say, in the locker room, should carry over for the entirety of the season.
And one last real quick thing is a different answer. Donovan's leadership has been so evident early on. And I know 2 years ago, he told Jason Lloyd, like, I have to win every game I play. And I'm going to go balls to the wall. When push comes to shove, crunch time, put it on me. I got us. I'll take us there. Now he is perfectly capable and willing to kind of let other guys carry the load down the stretch. And Donovan knows come playoff time, those are his shots. But in the regular season, he needs Darius and Evan and Jarrett and Karras and Max and Dean and all those guys to build up their own confidence. So when they get to a playoff situation, they're not shy or gun shy in those big moments. And I thought against Milwaukee on Monday night, he admitted his legs were shot. They played a ton of games. It was 3 and 4. He's like, Darius, you got the legs. I'll be the decoy. You take it. I love what I've seen from Donovan from a leadership perspective. And that's my main takeaway. On the court, the vibe's there as the off the court.
I think that's an excellent way to put it in regards to Donovan. Taking a step back is essential in knowing who you can trust in the playoffs if you're having a down game. And Milwaukee, that performance by Darius Garland, when Donovan, you could tell that Donovan just did not have it in that fourth quarter, especially. And that he took it upon himself to get Darius Garland some looks leading down the stretch, and it ended up resulting in a Cavaliers victory.
All right, this is the last thing we'll touch on here, Mac, and we've got it a couple of times in the chat, so we might as well answer it. Max Strus isn't expected back for a month, so we don't have to have the full-on discussion and make a full-on decision until Max is a lot closer to coming back. But let's say Max was healthy. Let's say tomorrow was his season debut. Would you put Max in the starting lineup, or would you rock with Dean Wade? Because I have changed my opinion twice already this season on what to do.
This is a hard question to answer for me, but right now, for the purposes of this matchup, I lean heavily Dean Wade for what he can do on the defensive side of the ball. Now, we're putting up 130 plus on any given night on teams. I think we've already done it 4 times, if I'm not mistaken. That is without Dean Wade shooting at a seriously high volume.
He's the only one that's missing shots right now. Dean's the only one who's not supernova hot from 3.
And he doesn't need to be. He just needs to shoot with high enough volume to draw gravity, continue to be out there working on the glass, and provide his always impactful defense. And the Cavaliers can win games just like that. Because it's truly it's kind of the balance between offense and defense and having him out there. And the size definitely helps. At 6'9", he has positional versatility. You can place him out there defending anywhere 3 through 5 on any given night, depending upon the matchup. So I would say yes. If Max was healthy right now, I'm not full on ready to say it, but I lean Dean Wade right now. And I understand that there are solid arguments to be made for each. The volume shooting, the playmaking, and I think that's a very underutilized portion of Max Strus's game. We saw that he is much more than just a movement shooter that most people thought he was prior to his acquisition, but he showed a lot last year. So I can understand certainly why you'd want to place him back in the starting lineup.
So when the year started, I was like, as soon as Max is healthy, he's got to be your starter again because he brings so much more offensively and you can run so many sets and his playmaking, everything you just mentioned. And then I started seeing how they used Evan Mobley as an offensive fulcrum and a guy who they're going to force the ball to make plays. And I've actually switched. And I think Max now actually fits in better with the second unit than the first unit. If you had Donovan, Darius, and Evan on the court all at the same time, you're just not running a ton of sets for Max Strus. And if you're not going to run a ton of stuff for Max Strus, taking him off pin downs, using him on double screens, coming off floppies, whatever the play may be.
Yeah.
I think he's better suited doing that in the second unit when you could have Dean Wade be your stand in the corner spot up 3-point shooter. Plus all the defensive stuff you bring up with Dean Wade. He's a better rebounder. He helps in that capacity. But now that Evan Mobley is legitimately part of the offense and not just a second thought, but frankly, a first thought on about 25% of possessions, I just don't know how many opportunities or sets you'll be running for Max Strus to utilize what he does best, which is put the defense in crazy rotations because they're chasing him around screens.
Yes.
So I actually think just by the pure nature of there's only so many shots to go around, and there's only so many plays you can run for guys in a quarter or a rotation. I think I'm sticking with Dean Wade until he's unplayable, and I hope that doesn't get to the point of him being unplayable. But I think the fact he doesn't need the ball, him and Jared are so unselfish and just know, hey, we're not going to get the play, run for us, but if we get it, we can make something happen. I think it's the perfect complement, those 2 to 3 guys who eat up most of the offensive opportunities in a good way.
Dean is averaging 4.3 field goal attempts and 3.7 triples per game. The Cavaliers are 9-0. I understand that Dean has not played in every single game now, but in the games that he has played, whether he's putting up big time stat lines or not, because he's not a guy who will likely do that with consistency, he still finds ways to play winning basketball. And everything that we just mentioned are huge talking points towards keeping him in the starting unit. And if something is working, as we have constantly seen it has to start the season, you probably should roll with it. And I think one of the biggest things that you mentioned, the sets that were run for Max last year, where he was, there was a lot of DHO actions between himself and Jared and Evan. He was able to get guys open looks and hit them while they're cutting to the basket, things of that nature. I think that they could heavily tap into that with him in the second unit, especially with guys like Ty Jerome and Karis LeVert handling the rock out there.
Could you imagine, by the way, and I swear to goodness, I hadn't thought of this until you just said that. Can you imagine a lineup? Ready for this? George is your 5. Then we're going super small, but supernova from 3. Okay. George is your 5, and then you have whatever position you want to put these other 4 in. Jerome, LeVert, Merrill, and Strus. And just run, gun, shoot, and be wild. Now, obviously, they'll have probably either Jarrett or Evan or Tristan, but a real big in there. Holy mackerel, Mac. Would that be a supernova from 3 potential lineup that you could run some really fun stuff with? And if you're a defensive player trying to guard any of those actions, good luck taking one half step the wrong way, because I guarantee one fraction of a misstep is going to lead to an open 3 for somebody. Mac, appreciate you hopping on tonight. Tell the good people out there where they can find you on Twitter, and tell them about the It's Cavalier podcast so they can also check you out on YouTube as well.
At Devron Perry over on Twitter, or at It's Cavalier _ pod as well. That's the actual podcast account. You can catch me going nightly, live nightly over on It's Cavalier after games. Really just be shooting the shit over there. So I mean, if your thing is high level basketball analysis, I'm not your guy.
Max, hey, we mentioned the vibes in the locker room. Mac's a vibes guy on YouTube and a vibes guy on Twitter. There's not a guy that brings better vibes to the Cavs stratosphere in this media world we live in than my guy Max. So make sure you check him out. He is always on Twitter and he loves to argue. So if you have a wild take, make sure you tweet it at Mac. I've never seen someone take more time out of his busy day. He's a dad, he's a husband, he's a worker, and he's the number one Twitter troll and arguer I've ever met online. So if you want to go back and forth, don't tweet at me. I'm probably not going to see it, but Mac, I promise you will answer with way too much attention to detail on the answer. Mac, any final thoughts?
All I can say is that Cavs fans just need to enjoy the ride because you don't know how often things like this come around. As again, there's only been 10 teams to start a season 9-0. We could be starting 10-0 after tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, check out Mac on Twitter. You can find me at Mike Lucas TV. As always, we'll see you tomorrow on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. And remember, go Cavs. Peace. Okay.